Chicago, 1962. A Tuesday morning in early October. The radiator ticks in the corner of a small bedroom on the second floor of a brick house on Elmwood Avenue. Outside, the maple trees have gone amber. A woman stands at her vanity, not rushing, not checking her phone, not half awake with coffee in hand. She is 28 years old. Her name is probably Dorothy, or Helen, or June. And before she opens that front door, she has an entire world to complete. A world most people never saw. What you're about to see isn't just a list of old-fashioned habits. These were the unspoken rules, the invisible architecture of a woman's daily life in the 1950s and 60s, passed down through whispers and glances, never written in any book, never taught in any classroom. Most people today have no idea these practices even existed, and yet, for an entire generation of women, they were as automatic as breathing. Some of them you might find surprisingly wise. Some might make you quietly angry. And some might make you realize that what we've lost isn't just a habit, it's a kind of artistry. Before she even thought about the door, Dorothy would stand in front of the full-length mirror on the back of the closet door, not to admire herself, to inspect, starting at the top, working slowly down. The back of her skirt, the hem, the seams of her stockings, because a crooked seam was a quiet embarrassment that could follow you all day. This was the final audit. Unhurried, thorough. The idea was simple. Once you walk out that door, the world sees you. So see yourself first, and see yourself clearly. It wasn't vanity. It was accountability to your own presentation. Speaking of stockings, this deserves its own chapter entirely. Nylon stockings in the early 1960s had a seam that ran straight up the back of the leg, and keeping that seam perfectly vertical was considered a mark of a woman who had it together. She would draw the stocking slowly up, smooth the heel into place, and then reach around to feel the seam with 2 fingers, adjusting, centering, checking. Some women had their husbands or mothers check it for them before leaving. A crooked seam wasn't just a fashion flaw. In certain circles, it spoke volumes about a woman's attention to detail. Today, we pay $50 for seamless everything. Back then, the seam was the point, and getting it right was a quiet, daily discipline. She would open the small drawer of the vanity and choose her lipstick deliberately, not quickly. Color mattered, not just for beauty, but for message. A deep red on a Tuesday was a statement. A coral pink was safer. A nude shade said something else entirely. She applied it in 2 clean strokes, pressed her lips together, then tore a small square of tissue from the box, pressed it between her lips, and pulled it away slowly. The blot. Not a wipe, a blot. It removed the excess, softened the line, and set the color to last for hours without a mirror nearby. Women who knew this trick rarely needed to reapply before noon. Today, we have setting sprays and lip liners and 100 products promising the same result. The tissue cost almost nothing. This one will surprise you. Before leaving, she would run her hands slowly across every visible seam of her outfit. Jacket hem, collar edge, the bottom of her skirt. She was looking for loose threads, the small cotton wisps that caught light in an unflattering way and made even a good garment look tired. She kept a small pair of embroidery scissors in the top drawer. If she found a thread, she cut it clean at the root. Never pulled it. That only made things worse. It sounds minor, but to a woman in 1958, appearing in public with an unraveling hem was the sartorial equivalent of leaving the house with a stain. These were the details that composed a woman's reputation, stitch by stitch. Perfume was never sprayed in those days, or rarely. It was applied. She would tip the small glass bottle against one finger and dab, behind the left ear, behind the right. And then the third point that most people forget: the inside of the wrists, which would be pressed together gently, never rubbed. Rubbing, she had been told by her mother, bruises the top notes, breaks the scent before it can bloom. And she never applied more than 3 points of contact. The rule was specific. You wanted someone to notice your perfume only when they came close. If they could smell you across a room, you had failed. Subtlety was the entire point. And somehow, a single dab of something simple, like Chanel No. 5 or Evening in Paris, lasted all day. If you've never had to decide which gloves to wear in the morning, you've missed an entire layer of social literacy that once existed. In the 1950s, gloves were not optional for most public outings. Short white cotton gloves for daytime errands, longer formal gloves for evening, leather gloves in autumn. And the rule was that gloves were put on outside the house, never inside, and removed before eating, always. Dorothy would tuck her gloves into her handbag if the occasion was informal. She would pull them on at the door if she was going somewhere that required them. The gloves went on last, after the bag was clasped, after the hat was pinned. There was an order to everything, and gloves were the final punctuation of the sentence. A woman's hat was not simply placed on her head. It was anchored. Hat pins, long, elegant needles, often with a decorative pearl or gemstone at the tip, were slid through the brim of the hat at a precise angle to catch the hair underneath. 1 pin, sometimes 2. The goal was that the hat should not move. Not in wind, not when she turned her head, not when she sat in the car. There was a particular angle considered correct, 45 degrees, roughly, through the crown, and a woman who knew how to pin her hat properly never reached up to fix it in public. It stayed. Today, this level of intentionality around a single accessory seems almost incomprehensible. But there was something quietly elegant about committing so fully to wearing something that you prepared it so carefully. Every respectable woman carried a handkerchief, linen usually, sometimes cotton, often embroidered at the corner with her initial or a small flower, a gift from a mother or an aunt, folded once and tucked into the left side of the handbag, accessible quickly without searching. But here is the part most people don't know. A handkerchief was never used to blow your nose in public. That was for absolute emergencies only. The handkerchief was for dabbing, perspiration at the temple on a warm day, a child's chin, a drop of rain on the face. It was a tool of grace, not utility. The idea that you would honk loudly into a linen square in the middle of a department store was unthinkable. There were rules inside the rules, always. And item 9 may be the most quietly controversial of all of them. This one was almost ceremonial. Before she opened the front door, Dorothy would pause, sometimes consciously, sometimes simply out of habit, and adjust her posture. Shoulders back and down. Chin level, not tilted up, which read as arrogance, not tilted down, which read as apology. She had likely been corrected since childhood. Books balanced on heads, stern reminders at the dinner table. The message was always the same. How you hold your body tells the world what you think of yourself. And so before the door opened onto the world, the body was arranged, quietly and deliberately, into something she could be confident in. It cost nothing, and it worked. But it's also worth saying plainly, this correction was applied almost exclusively to girls. Boys were not sent to school with books on their heads. Men were not reminded at dinner to sit up straight. The posture rule was preparation, but it was preparation aimed in one direction only. That's a quiet fact worth sitting with, somewhere between admiration and discomfort. She would never leave without a quick, methodical check of her handbag. Not a frantic rummage, a check. This was a habit with a specific sequence. Handkerchief, lipstick, compact mirror, coin purse, house key, and for many women in the 50s, a small notebook and pencil, because you never knew when you'd need to write something down. The handbag was organized, not casually stuffed. She could reach in without looking and find anything she needed in 3 seconds. Today, we carry bags so large we lose our keys inside them. What came next, the window light test, is the one beauty trick most women have completely forgotten, and it may be the most useful thing in this entire video. This habit is almost entirely forgotten now. Before leaving, many women would walk to the window, specifically a window with direct outdoor light, and look at their face in a small compact mirror one final time. Not bathroom light, not overhead light, outdoor light. Because bathroom lighting, they understood, lies. It flatters, it softens, it hides the powder that is settled in the fine lines around the nose. But outdoor light is honest. If your foundation had oxidized orange at the jawline, the window light caught it. If your powder had gone too heavy on one side, the window showed you clearly. This was practical intelligence, the kind of knowledge passed between women over decades. And it worked better than the ring lights and beauty lamps we pay hundreds of dollars for today. Shoes were never worn out of the house without being inspected. Not just clean, conditioned. Women in the 1950s kept a small wooden shoebox, usually under the bed or in the hall closet, with a tin of polish, a horsehair brush, and a soft cloth. Before an outing, the shoes were polished briefly, buffed, the toe checked for scuffs. The reasoning was direct. People look at your shoes, and worn, scuffed shoes, no matter how elegant the rest of the outfit, announced that a woman had stopped paying attention. This was a firm social understanding. The ritual took 4 minutes. The tin of shoe cream lasted months. No one today stops to buff their shoes before leaving the house, and perhaps that's why so many good shoes end up looking so tired so quickly. But the next habit, the simplest one on this entire list, is the one that will make you miss a time you may never have lived in. Before she left for more than a short errand, a woman would leave a note. Not a text message, a note, written on a small pad by the telephone, or pinned to the refrigerator with a magnet. Gone to the market, back by 2. Dinner in the icebox. The note wasn't required. No one demanded it. But it was understood. If you were part of a household, you made your movements readable to the people who shared that household. It was a form of quiet consideration, a way of saying, even when I'm not here, I'm thinking of you. Children coming home from school, husbands returning from work, neighbors who might stop by. Everyone was accounted for. And there was something deeply human about that little slip of paper waiting on the counter. A small handwritten signal that said, I was here. I'll be back. This sounds almost comical now, but it was real, and it was taken seriously. Before leaving, a woman would check her clothing, usually the collar and underarms of whatever she was wearing, for any scent that was not intentional. This was the era before reliable deodorant, before synthetic fabrics that breathed well. Wool and cotton held everything, and appearing in public with any trace of domestic smell, cooking, pets, laundry on your clothes, was a quiet mortification. She would hold the collar briefly to her nose, sometimes pass a cedar-scented hanger over the garment. On cold mornings, she might hang the dress near an open window for 10 minutes to let the air take the smell away. It was unglamorous, but it was honest, and it reflected a generation that understood the silent, invisible work of maintaining one's presence in the world. This is the one that will stay with you. Some women, and this is something daughters remember about their mothers, something that gets passed down in the telling, would pause for just a moment before closing the door behind them. Not a long pause, a breath, really. Some looked back at the kitchen, some at the children's shoes lined up in the hall. Some simply stood in the doorway and felt the house around them before stepping out of it. It wasn't superstition. It wasn't ritual in any formal sense. It was simply the practice of not leaving carelessly, of acknowledging what you were walking away from, even briefly, even silently, before walking toward whatever came next. It was, perhaps, the most human thing on this entire list. Somewhere between then and now, we stopped leaving the house with ceremony. We rush out mid-thought, door half open, keys found at the last second, one shoe on, one still in hand. We are always already somewhere else before we have left. And I'm not sure that the women of 1962 had easier lives. They didn't. Many of these rules were exhausting. Many were unfair. Many existed not out of wisdom, but out of social pressure that we are right to have shed. But underneath the rules, beneath the seam checks and the lipstick blots and the careful posture, there was something worth holding on to. The idea that how you prepare yourself in the morning is a quiet form of self-respect. That small, deliberate rituals make a day feel anchored. That leaving a house thoughtfully is a way of honoring both the home you're leaving and the world you're entering. Dorothy, or Helen, or June didn't always have a choice about the rules she followed, but she passed down the spirit of them, the care, the attention, the understanding that presence is something you prepare for, not something that just happens. And maybe that's the piece worth keeping. If you found yourself nodding along, or if this reminded you of someone you loved, you might enjoy our video on the beauty tricks women used in the 1960s that salons have completely forgotten. Some of them still work remarkably well. It's quieter than you expect, and a little bit wonderful. Thank you for spending this time here.